Well, the shadow of Russia is again looming over US President Donald Trump. First, Mr. Trump did a U-turn on a joint US-Russia cybersecurity force. Now there are mixed messages emerging about a meeting between the president's son and a Russian lawyer who promised damaging information about Hillary Clinton. Susan Malveaux sorts it out.
The New York Times reporting that Donald Trump Jr. was promised damaging information about Hillary Clinton before agreeing to meet with a Russian lawyer with ties to the Kremlin at Trump Tower on June 9th, 2 weeks before his father became the Republican nominee. Trump Jr. admitting in a statement that potentially helpful information was a pretext for the meeting, but insisting that nothing meaningful was provided, noting the woman stated that she had information that individuals connected to Russia were funding the Democratic National Committee and supporting Ms. Clinton. Her statements were vague, ambiguous, and made no sense. The president's son insisting that his father knew nothing about the meeting, a statement reiterated by Trump's legal team.
And it was a nothing meeting.
In Donald Jr.'s initial statement released Saturday, he gave a different explanation for the meeting, explaining that they primarily discussed a program about the adoption of Russian children and making no mention of Hillary Clinton. Both statements noting that the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and then campaign chairman Paul Manafort were also in attendance.
I think we're going to want to question everyone that was at that meeting about what was discussed.
This as President Trump is facing scrutiny over his response to Russia's election hacks after meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump walking back a tweet about forming an impenetrable cybersecurity unit with Russia to guard against the threat.
I am sure that Vladimir Putin could be of enormous assistance in that effort since he's doing the hacking.
Facing backlash, President Trump reversing course 12 hours later, tweeting, "The fact that President Putin and I discussed a cybersecurity unit doesn't mean I think it can happen. It can't, but a ceasefire can and did."
It's not the dumbest idea I've ever heard, but it's pretty close.
President Trump also insisting Sunday that he strongly pressed President Putin about Russian meddling during Friday's meeting, but not indicating if he accepted Putin's vehement denial, saying only, "I've already given my opinion."
I think it was Russia, but I think it was probably other people and/or countries, and I see nothing wrong with that statement. Nobody really knows.
This after the Russian foreign minister said Friday that President Trump heard and accepts Putin's denial, a claim the president's aides denied on Sunday after initially declining to answer questions about the matter during a gaggle aboard Air Force One.
The president absolutely did not believe the denial of President Putin.
And President Trump declaring just yesterday that now is the time to move forward to work constructively with Russia. But that, of course, might be difficult. Lawmakers and Congress, they are finalizing a bill that would slap additional sanctions on Russia because of its meddling in the election. Administration officials are quite frustrated by this because they feel that President Trump needs more flexibility to negotiate with President Putin.
Thanks to Suzanne Malveaux for that report. Well, Donald Trump Jr. took to Twitter a little earlier to defend himself again with a bit of sarcasm. He writes, "Obviously, I'm the first person to ever take a meeting to hear info about an opponent." He says the meeting went nowhere, but he had to listen. Well, let's bring in CNN senior political analyst Mark Preston for more on all of this. Mark, let's start with Donald Trump Jr. First, he said he never met with the Russians. Then he said he did, but it was about adoption. And now we hear that he was offered some dirt on Hillary Clinton. If there was nothing to hide, why is he so shifty on this?
Well, and he took that meeting as well. You know, that's a very good question, Lynda. The fact of the matter is we've seen time and time again over the past several months where we've heard one thing from associates of President Trump, only to then they have to amend what they've said, specifically when it comes to meetings with Russian officials or with Russians in general. We saw this with the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. We saw this with the former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. We're now seeing with Donald Trump Jr. As well, in addition to Paul Manafort, who was the campaign chairman at the time, who has done a lot of work in the Ukraine region. In addition to that, We also saw Jared Kushner, who happens to be married to Ivanka Trump and is very, very close to the president. In fact, he is now inside the West Wing. So clearly, Donald Trump Jr.'s story has changed over time, and that has caused a lot of concern here in Washington.
And now just looking at that G20 meeting, President Putin and President Trump met for over 2 hours, said the countries would work together on a unit to safeguard cyberspace. President Trump came home to that storm of criticism from both his party and the opposition, and now he seems to be backpedaling on that idea.
Well, the idea that the United States and Russia would get together and form some kind of cyber squad is laughable in many ways. In fact, we heard that from Senator John McCain, a leading hawk here in the United States Senate against Russia, where he just laughed it off and said, of course, it would be great to have Putin on board. Putin is the one who's doing all of the hacking. In addition to that, there was a lot of questions about the G20 meeting in general, this side meeting. And in fact, President Trump, while his advisors are saying it was very successful, they're saying back here now, including Senator Lindsey Graham, that it was not a successful meeting. So there is a lot of concern back here in the United States Congress about how Donald Trump is moving forward in his relationship with Russia.
Russia's still one of the key focuses in the White House. Mark Preston, good to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Linda.